from that. So, on today's episode, let's look at how important deals are. So, the important thing about a deal is that regardless of how much money you save, a deal still costs you money. So when you are looking at comparing that to cash flow is the money you get in and the money that goes out. And the interesting thing about good deals, even free deals, is that they can still cost you a lot of money. So I like to take, uh, I'd like to show you an example of what happened to me when my wife and I we purchased our home, and our home came with a hot tub. Now, obviously, we probably paid for the hot tub somewhere in the price of the house, I guess, but it was never a consideration. It was never something we wanted, and it was never something that I would have paid an extra penny to have. So when we bought the house, the hot tub was all set up in the backyard, and it came with it. So for the first couple years, or not couple years, for the first couple months, sorry, we had a really good time using it, starting to enjoy it. But it was the dead of winter. We moved in December, and it was basically the end of January, and it was super cold outside. So I think it was around minus 20, uh, and the hot tub all of a sudden had no heat. And when it's minus 20, that hot tub loses heat really fast. And I couldn't figure out what the problem was. So I tried to get a repairman out. Repairman said, well, I'm going to try and get there, but one thing you should do is, put a portable heater underneath the tubes because you don't want them to freeze up because that would ruin the whole hot tub. So I do that, wait for him to show up, and my first major repair on the hot tub was due. So that is the $900 expense that you can see over here. And the $900 expense occurred within 2 months. And before saying go ahead to do that, I discussed with my wife, what should we do, all that sort of thing. Well, we just got the hot tub, and we just moved in, and we were enjoying it. And yes, we didn't ever really want the hot tub, so do we even bother fixing it? But then if we let the water freeze, it could freeze in the pipes, and it could expand, and everything could be super damaged. So then even trying to resell it would not be worth anything. So we decided to fix the hot tub. So the pump went in, quite a hard installation with such cold weather, and we were able to get the hot tub working again. So not maybe a year and a half later, would have been the next winter, again, the heat goes away. And contact someone for repairs, and then we look into it, and the problem was the heater. So there goes another $200, not as major as the other problem. So we went ahead and did that repair. So then fast forward to the next year, we're looking at, it's really losing a lot. I've started to notice the electricity bill going up. And I think it's to do with the cover we have on the hot tub. You can see the energy leaving. You can see the heat leaving from the hot tub because the cover had worn out. So we purchased a new thermal cover, so that costs another $600. So then, while all of this is going on, we're now looking at $1,700 having gone into this free hot tub. Then we have our electricity that is going all the time as an expense as well. So some months it's more, some months it's less, but I would assume an average of about $75 a month of electricity so that we can keep this hot tub going. So this is just an example of a great deal, being super happy that we got this free hot tub, and then it just leads to more and more money going out for something that, if I look back now, we've had it 5 years now. I don't know if I would spend it again, but we did. But every one of those decisions to fix was an emotional thing, and then once you start fixing, it's just like a car. Well, I just fixed this major thing on it, so I don't want to waste. That would be a waste of money if I then continue to repair all the other parts. So again, it just kind of snowballs in that regard. And something to think about too is that this is my example of the free hot tub, and I chose this to share with you simply because it was free. So you can't get a better deal than free. But if you look at say you have find a great deal on a new floor, right? You want a new hardwood floor, and it's on sale, and it's a great deal, and they're giving an installation discount. Well, that's great, and of course, save money if you can, but realize that that change in the floor is likely going to lead to maybe repainting the room. Okay, well, maybe that's not that major of expense, but once you repaint the room, well, maybe the sofa and the chairs and the tables don't match in the room anymore either. And so now you're spending all that because you've already bought this new floor and you paid a lot for the floor, so you want everything to look great, right? So certain decisions can lead to other ones. And cell phones can be one too. That may mean an increased cell phone plan, that may mean purchasing new apps, new accessories, just cell phone covers and protectors alone. It's kind of unreal how much some of them cost. And then, if you look at the biggies is definitely your car and your home. And so, if you purchase a car, what expenses are going to go with that, right? And then there's a balance, so sometimes people will want to purchase a newer car because, an older car might require repairs. And that may make sense, but even a new car will likely cost more in insurance. If you're in a cold climate, you may need to purchase a new set of snow tires to go with it. So even new purchases like that, which of course a new car is significantly more expensive, all that can lead to additional expenses. And then when you have a new car, you want to make sure that it's on a good rotation. So a car can be a really big expense, not just the initial expense of the car, but all the things that go with it. And your house is another great example, right? You buy a house, you may want to renovate, you may want to fix up. There may be repairs that were unforeseen. So just adding that large expense one time has a lot of consequences for your cash flow long term. So going back to the topic of cash flow, we're really looking at managing the inflow and outflow of your money. And the consequence of having poor cash flow, not managing that well, means that you'll often have to be taken out of debt, or you'll have to use debt as a way to get you through those challenging times, right? And if sorry, if we go back to the whiteboard here, I'll just clear it. But you know, life is full of ups and downs, right? So it's never just things go well, you know, and sorry, I gotta adjust the screen. Things just don't go well on a nice straight line, right? Possibly get married, maybe have kids, find a job. It's not a steady course like that. And instead, what you have is, you start your first job, you make a bit of money, um, maybe you go on a trip, that sort of stuff, eats away, and then you start making some more money, and then maybe you get married, so then you have lots of expenses with that. Then you start building it again, and then you start having kids, and so that. But then also in there, you may have an income that just totally drops because you lost your job, and you may take you time to recover from that, right? And so your life is not ups and downs. And you know, then if you add in there later in life health problems, that could cause your income to go down, or a disability, or even sometimes divorce, that can lead to challenges with your cash flow, right? So when you have your cash flow managed, it means if there's an emergency, if there's something that happens, then you have some money there available for that. If and it allows you to stop the cycle of having to go into debt, because once you go into debt, then that puts more constraints on your cash flow, right? You need to, at the very minimum, pay the interest on those debts. And then if you have any hope of paying back the debt, it's going to take even more sacrifice, and cutting to do so. So you just really want to work to manage that cash flow as best you can. Um, Now, one thing to try and manage that cash flow better is to avoid deals. And, a deal, if it's something that you've saved up for or been saving up for, and that deal, because of the price drop, allows you to purchase it with the money you have already saved, then that's a great deal. And that allows you to get to your goal, or obtain what you want to do or have sooner. So that's a positive. But if you haven't really set a goal to obtain something, and that and something goes on sale and it's a great deal, and you'll just lose out if you can't purchase it. Well, if you haven't saved for that, if it wasn't important enough for you to try and figure out how to work towards getting it, then likely it's not important enough for you to uh, just purchase. And I mean, you could, of course, you can, but then you're going to get back into the debt cycle, and it then puts more constraints on your cash flow. The other part um, of not wanting to just shop for the deals is that stores, retailers, online stores, they're doing everything they can to get you to take that, to give you their money, right? So they you may not be prepared to purchase something right now at full price. You may not have it saved, or it may not have even been important enough for you to start saving for it. But what they'll do is they'll throw something at you that just seems too good to be true, and it seems like you'd be stupid not to even take advantage of it. And I have trouble with that all the time. Enticements from flyers, but even you know when online retailers are sending you notices saying something on your wish list is now on sale or something like that, right? They're just really trying to entice you. And if you go back to um, the previous episode where we talked about emotional spending, I gave some tips on to how to manage that emotional spending, right? So if you're doing the weekly cash um, strategy that came from that episode, then and something falls within the amount of money you have there, and it's not going to decimate your plans for the week with your money. If it's that kind of a deal and you want to take advantage of it and you haven't been saving for it, then by all means, that money in that weekly spending is meant to be spent. So that's fine, and that strategy, they kind of work together. So you can kind of do that sort of thing, right? For me, it's Canadian Tire, right? So if something small goes on at Canadian Tire, it just seems like some incredible deal because of some sale they have. If I have the amount in my weekly spending, because I've maybe not spent as much that week, then I'm free to go ahead and take advantage of that deal. And so I feel, I have that high of that deal, but I also don't have the consequence of ruining my cash flow and my plans towards my other goals. And that's what this is all about, right? If you manage your cash flow, then you're going towards those important goals that are most important to you, um, and you're not going off course, right? So that's a big factor of the cash flow. Now, one thing, when you're organizing your cash flow is your entire financial picture. So where emotional spending and the weekly spending that I mentioned in our previous live episode, well, that was just to help control the emotional spending, and that again is to control the cash flow. It's cash flow oriented. But when you're looking at your total cash flow picture, looking at anything about rent or mortgages or car insurance or car payments, any and all expenses, if that's all coming in, then you really want to make sure that aligns well with your paycheck. And this is going to be different for everybody. So if your paycheck is a weekly paycheck, you're going to be organizing your expenses and how money comes out on a weekly basis. If it's on a bi-weekly basis, like that. I had a job that was on a monthly basis, and that was significantly harder to manage, right? You have to really look at how that inflow and outflow of your money goes, to really have an idea as to that you're not running out of cash. Because as soon as you run out of cash or it gets a little too tight in your bank account, that's when you run into trouble. Then you start thinking, oh well, I'm not gonna do this with cash, or I'll just put it on the credit card, or or I need to pull some money from a line of credit. And so that's what you really want to try and focus on, is organizing that on a weekly and bi-weekly or monthly basis, and making sure that matches. So that's a little bit about cash flow and versus deals. Um, it's just something to have in the back of your mind, something to think about. Next time you see deals or find or enticed to want to buy something, just keep all that in mind, and remember that it could set you off course. Because very often with managing your cash flow, it's not so much major decisions, and sometimes there is. Sometimes, I just need to get away, and I book a vacation, and depending on how many people go with you, is how damaging it could be to your finances. But often it's just very small micro decisions, that are made as you go along, and are influenced by your emotions that really have a negative impact on the long term when you add it all up to your cash flow. And the most damaging part of it is that it creates that financial black hole. So it's spending you don't even realize you're doing. So really getting a hold of your cash flow and better managing that um, is something important to always realize and think about. Now, we've got just under 10 minutes left in the episode. And so I like to spend this time to answer any questions that anyone might have or might have submitted. And so I'm just going to check here. Okay, so this is a question coming in from Michael. Michael simply asks, is it better to save for retirement or to pay down debt? So this is actually one of my favorite things to talk about because just as with most things in financial planning, often a balanced approach will get you further. So if you have a mortgage, then it's more important that you focus on how fast or how can I repay this debt than focusing on what interest rate you have. And that's something that I'm planning to hopefully speak to in a future episode, specifically some tips and tricks to learn how to pay down your mortgage faster. But so that should be a goal to try and reduce that, right? It'll save you significant amount of interest over time. Now, the challenge with a mortgage is that often the interest rates, at least lately, have been reasonable. So then if you look at saving for retirement, you often will be using some sort of a vehicle where, in Canada that's an RSP, in the States like an IRA, where you will be able to contribute money in, and then that will reduce your taxable income. And so what it does is it reduces your income today and then comes out as income later in the future when you retire and likely have a lower income. So by doing that, you end up with a significantly, you pay less tax. So by doing that, you're saving for retirement. That money grows in that account and doesn't add to your taxable income over that time. And then you also, when you contribute, are able to get a bit of a return. And so then that frees up some cash flow that didn't go to taxes to the government, and that can then be used to pay down other debts. Now, if you don't have any other debts, then you can definitely put that towards a mortgage and try and speed up those payments, which is great. But if you do have other debts and potentially high interest debts, then the decision gets a little trickier. Saving, yes, you'll get that cash back by putting it in a special retirement account, which does free up cash and allows you to save for the long term. But also at the same time, you're not going to get as much cash back in some sort of refund as you will if you had paid that directly to your debt. So how I would look at debt is, and especially if you have really high interest debt. High interest debt is a tax-free way, a tax-free investment that that pays significant returns. So, and guaranteed returns. So, if you put money into against your credit card, say you put $500 a month, say you're able to pay $500 a month off to your credit card, and that may be ambitious, but you know, let's say you're able to reorganize everything and make it a priority. Well, that $500 will be say your interest rate on that credit card is 19%, and it could be even higher. So you're earning 19% interest on that $500 essentially by paying off that debt. I mean, I know it's a bit reverse because it's actually money you're saving because you don't have to pay that interest in the future. But 19% is a huge return. And by putting money against that, you are guaranteed to have that 19% return. There's no market up and downs. It's not going to be a good or bad time to have invested. It's going to be a pure positive move at an extremely high rate of return. So there's no risk, there's no against that. And then to make that even better, you know, if you had a $500 investment and that had 19% interest that earned, which obviously is unheard of, but if you had earned 19% interest on that, you know, I'll just look at in Canada. Well, in Canada, 100% of that income you receive off that $500 will be added to your taxes. So whatever your tax rate is at the time, what you earn on that will be taxed at that rate. So by paying it against debt, you're getting the 19% return. It's guaranteed, so no risk, and it's totally tax-free. So it's really, you know, if you have really high interest debt, you know, I would really encourage you to really put your focus on really knocking that down significantly. And, you know, with retirement, you don't want to forget about putting money away in a retirement vehicle, but and it can be a really great move to do, especially if you have, say, not so high interest debts, like a line of credit, secured line of credit, or a mortgage. Then doing that hybrid of investing into your retirement, saving for your retirement, and then paying down some additional of the debt with the refund is a great way to go. Great balanced approach. It allows you to save over the long term. The more time you have, the more your investment can grow, have time to grow. So that's why you want to make time work for you. So you don't want to just keep putting it off until you're done paying that mortgage and that secured line of credit. But higher debt costs, especially credit cards, you just want to tackle them directly. Get those guaranteed returns, high returns, tax-free returns, and do that. So hope that question helps, or answer helps you, Michael. And that's our time for today. So thank you, everyone, for joining us on today's episode. Please like and subscribe, and please share it with your friends. The goal of this is really to get what I feel is proper, realistic advice about money, and trying to just encourage everyone to organize their finances so that they achieve their goals. And that's all I want for you, and that's all I want for your friends and family. So thank you for joining, and please join us again next week live, and hopefully I'll be able to take more questions, or maybe even your question then. Thanks very much.